just
John,
pressed
you're
it.
muted.
And just check if we're getting the questions.
Okay, we are live now.
Yeah.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hi, everyone. Hi, and thank you to everyone who has joined us live. We're going to give it a few minutes to let some other people join in as well. We're coming to you live under very extreme weather conditions in Colombo. And yeah, but the show must go on. So just give us a few minutes and bear with us.
Yeah, let's go, Yoshini. We have power cuts in Sri Lanka, so that's okay. The show must go on.
Yep.
Yeah, the purpose of this session, Ask Grit, is to ask away questions you might have as a foreigner when investing in properties. The purpose of the program is to add as value as much as we can so that you can get all your burning questions answered. Just to give a quick intro about us, our purpose at Grit Property Group is to transform lives of people by investing in properties in Australia. Now, we cater to all investors all around the world, not only in Australia, but also in the other parts of the world. But we tend to be getting same question each and every time. So we thought of having a program on a weekly basis so that we can answer all your questions through this live stream. Do you want to ask some of the questions we have got so far?
Yeah. Hi, Naveen. Yes, we have received some questions on the on our Facebook page through the comments, as well as questions through the inbox, direct questions as well. Let me start off with the first question. I think everyone wants to know how the situation in Melbourne is. So if you could just give us a little bit of an idea of the situation in Melbourne right now, in terms of the COVID situation, the property market, how is it faring right now?
Oh, the COVID situation is been phenomenal. We have had in Melbourne, Melbourne was the worst hit 3 months ago. We had over 700 cases at the time, but now 0 cases have been recorded for the past 15 days, which is unbelievable. So we are definitely coming out of it, and everything is getting back to normal. Only thing is, which is stopping right now is interstate travel, but Australian Prime Minister wants everyone to be able to travel without any restrictions prior to Christmas, which is fantastic.
Lovely,
in terms
lovely.
of
That's
the
good news.
In terms of the property market, I mean, during COVID, everyone was, especially the media, was saying there's going to be huge property dips, which should be seen in the market, which never happened. There was so much of government incentives which was offered as stimulus. And as a first home buyer, when you're buying right now as a local, you have a benefit of $40,000 to $60,000 when you buy your first property. Now that's a lot of money for a first home buyer, and this itself has hold on the market. And at the moment, people are free to go and have a look at properties, and we have seen tremendous growth in terms of demand for, especially on the house and land space.
Excellent, excellent. So that's good news. Seems like Australia as a whole is moving in the right direction and battling this particular pandemic that we're having throughout the world, and it's affecting so many countries in different ways. I think Australia has been resilient and has been very strong, just like Sri Lanka, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I was laughing, but then again, Sri Lanka was handling it extremely well. Unfortunately, it has hit them hard this time around, but I'm sure they'll come out of it, just like they did previously.
Yeah. So now let's get back to business. In terms of buying properties in Australia, this is a very common question that we are asked all the time. And it's a question that is a little bit vague in certain people's minds. They think that they, as a foreigner, they are not really sure whether they can really invest. So can a foreigner buy Australian property now?
The short answer is yes. Any foreigner can buy a property in Australia as long as the property is brand new. The only restriction is there is a body called Foreign Investment Review Board, which is a government authority who authorizes foreign transactions. So as a foreigner, they cannot buy an old property or an established property. As long as the property is brand new, any foreigner can purchase a property.
So there is no restriction whatsoever when it comes to foreigners purchasing property in Australia. Any part of the world, they can buy properties in Australia as long as the property is brand new. So how do you define brand new, Navid? Now, when you say brand new, what is brand new?
Yeah, so brand new meaning, so there are three categories of properties, right, in Australia. One is an apartment. If it's an apartment, it has to be under construction or already been built, but it's brand new. No one has lived in the property. So the definition of brand new is nobody would have lived in the property before the foreigner has purchased. The second category of properties is townhouses, which are predominantly in the inner city. Again, the purchase as a foreigner has to buy it brand new when no one has lived in the property, either off the plan before while during the construction or after completion before anyone starts living in there. So they have to be the first purchase of the property. The third category is house and land, which is houses with a block of land, which means you have to construct a property on a block of land. Again, that is a brand new property.
Right, right, lovely. So we're talking about residential properties here. So in terms of properties, there are three types of properties. There are the apartments, townhouses, and house and land packages. So any of these properties of your choosing will have to be brand new, as Naveen explained. Coming back to the second or third question, Naveen,
Yeah.
why would a foreigner choose Australia as an investment destination? Why would I choose Australia from any other part of the world or even my own country? Why would I choose Australia?
Now, that's a great question by whoever who asked. Obviously, someone living overseas as a foreigner, they know their territory more than anywhere else, and they will be comfortable investing in wherever they are. It can be Sri Lanka, it can be India, it can be Middle East, it can be Malaysia, Singapore. Wherever they are, they will be very, very comfortable investing there because they know the ground situation. Now, it's important that as an investor, if you put your investment hat on, that you diversify your investments too. Especially with the current economic climate all over the world, it's good to invest in safe havens and economically stable countries. One is it's a different currency. If you're investing in Australia, it's Australian dollar investment. Whatever the local currency is, you're not facing the currency issue and you're deviating or diversifying your currency in terms of investment. Number two is Australian population growth. Not only Australia, any country, if the population is growing, your property investment will not go south at all, because as long as there's people in the country, there will be a demand for property. And number three is it's a very, very safe investment. It's a very economically stable country. It's not a third world country. It's a very, very well developed country. There's so much of reserves. It's economically stable, and there's so much of potential. Australia, if you look at it, it's not a country, it's a continent, right? And being a continent is such a magnitude, there's only 25 million people. So there's so much of potential for the population to grow. In fact, it's growing at about 1.8% per annum at the moment, which is about 200,000 people coming to Australia every year. So when that kind of numbers are evident, you simply cannot go wrong in terms of a property investment in such a country.
Great, great. Also, Navin, I think the infrastructure development that has taken place all this time and what they have planned in the near future is pretty. I would say to a very large scale in the suburbs as well as city areas. I think that also would add quite a bit of leverage when it comes to the appreciation of properties as well as population moving in to some of these cities and suburbs, and that I think itself would cause a spike in the population or I would say price growth of properties.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the key areas which we focus on when we are proposing investments for foreigners. We are looking at the government initiatives in that suburb or area, so that when government is spending millions or billions of dollars on a particular suburb or area, we know for a fact that the appreciation has to happen when all those infrastructure is in place. So that's a very important factor. That's a very good point.
So I'll be discussing with you, Navin, in between questions, a few things that I feel, might be questions as well, counter questions of, the clients.
Yeah.
Yeah. And okay, this is a very interesting question that, I mean, a lot of people want to know whether this is, in certain instances, whether this is something that they would want based on this particular question that I'm going to ask you. Does buying an Australian property get that person a permanent residency? Does he get PR?
Again, short answer is no. I'm sure we'll be bombarded with inquiries if that was the case. Unfortunately, it's not the case. Just because you buy a property, you cannot get permanent residence in Australia. However, there are certain, migration is very simple. It's either skill migration or business migration. But having a property in Australia will obviously show the government that you have an interest in Australia, which is a plus point. But getting a property will not get you the PR. You got to have the required points either in the skill category or in the business migration category.
Right. But now I think a state, for example, Canberra, if you take the capital, they offer points for property purchases, right? They give you 5 points in case you buy a property in that particular area, the city, capital city. And also if you live and work there, I believe you get points, you get 5 points.
Yes. Yeah, Canberra is an area where Australian government is driving for population growth. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You get 5 points for purchasing a property which is worth over $250,000. But none of the other territories offer that. There are also some other schemes in business migration where property will help you towards it, but it will not get you there just for buying the property.
Right. Okay. Let me check the other questions, Navin. Yeah, so we have another question by this individual. He has not mentioned his name. So he's straight to the point. He's asking us, what level of appreciation can we expect from Australian properties?
Yeah, so in terms of if you look at the high growth areas, high growth suburbs, you're looking at 6 to 8% per annum growth. That doesn't mean that every year there's 7% growth, but if you look at a 6 to 7 year period, that would be the average appreciation during a certain property investment. Now, if you look at the categories of properties, houses in Australia will give you a better appreciation than apartments. Apartments are close to the city, and there's very good rental return on those. However, in terms of capital appreciation, houses will always beat apartments.
So in terms of rent, Navin, how would that fare in terms of if a person is looking for a rental yield for maybe long term, not the short term of 5 years, we'll say by 8, 10 years and more. In terms of rent, what should that person choose as a form of investment? Would it be an apartment? Would it be a townhouse or a house and land?
Yeah, either of the properties can be rented out, but I must mention that especially during COVID, as you can imagine, most of the universities went online and most of the students went away to their home countries. So most of the rentals in the city has suffered quite badly. However, in the suburbs, we have not seen that at all. Because if you logically think, people in the suburbs are not moving anywhere else, they will be in the suburbs. So the rental demand has been normal, even during COVID. But any of the properties which you mentioned can be rented out, and we manage the end-to-end process for investors if they are overseas.
Excellent, excellent. All right, Navin, what about grit? I think a person wants to know more about our company and how we came to where we are today. So maybe you could give us a little bit of an idea. Of course, I know what grit is all about, but probably you could, as the founder and the director, give them an idea as to what grit is all about and how we came to be.
Yeah, we are on a mission. We want to help as many people as possible to create financial freedom. It can be a foreign, it can be a local, and that's what we do at our best. And I mean, we have grown phenomenally. We have 3 offices now. We have in Colombo, Melbourne, 4 offices actually, Mumbai, Hyderabad, and agents offices in Dubai and Singapore. So over 20 people working with us, and we have grown phenomenally well. And I mean, again, what we do best is helping people to invest their money in the right properties and to achieve financial freedom. And that's what we are passionate about. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what all of you guys are passionate about as the team. And that's what we do. In terms of I mean, there's no limit in terms of countries we support. We support all of Australia as well as right across Middle East as well as Southeast Asia. Lovely. So I think we have one more question, Shaheen. It's very popular question. How do you send money to Australia with current government regulations? I'm sure the question would have come from Sri Lanka or India, but that's right. There's government regulations currently, and you cannot transfer funds out. That is done with the right intentions, because you should not move funds out of the country, especially in a pandemic like this. Well, unfortunately, there's no way to send the funds out unless you have a foreign account in an overseas country. If you have a foreign account in Singapore or Dubai or somewhere else, then you can transfer funds out. Otherwise, what we do is we always plan for it. With the current restrictions, until the end of December, nobody can transfer funds out in Sri Lanka as well as in India. But there's no such restrictions in other countries. But what we do to mitigate that is we propose properties which will be completed in about 2 years away, so that funds have to be transferred only in about 2 years. Only a very little deposit is required to start off. So that's the contingency plan we use at the moment until things get sorted out. But if the government is not having any restrictions, there's no restrictions to get the money into Australia.
Quick question, Navin.
Yeah.
When the money reaches Australia, say I'm an investor and I invest in a property, a house and land in the suburb, and I have to sign the contracts and deposit the money. Where does my money go?
Yeah, so in Australia, it's quite straightforward. As a developer, you cannot use people's money to build your properties. It's very straightforward. So money has to always go into a lawyer's trust account, which cannot be touched by anyone, not the developer, not the agents. It will sit with the lawyer's trust account, and that's by law. So whatever the initial deposits you transfer will go into a lawyer's trust account and it'll sit there until the completion. So as a developer, they are going to take their money or their profits at the end of construction. For example, if you're doing a development project for apartments, if it takes 3 years to complete, as a developer, they are collecting the deposits, a 10% deposit from the purchasers, and it will sit in the lawyer's trust account until the 3 years goes by. So only upon completion, at the handover, that's when the developer gets their money.
All right. So in other words, your money is safe and sound. I'm sure a lot of the investors that we have worked with, they have experienced, few instances where their money has not been safe, or their money has not been refunded, or the projects have not kicked off, or they have not completed on time. So in other words, it's very safe to say that Australia is a very safe country in terms of your investment, because the property market is highly regulated. And of course, it's a very strong property market. Navin, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so real estate market in Australia is extremely regulated, as you rightly said, especially with the trust accounting, which I was mentioning before. That's if you mess up with the trust account, you can pretty much end up in the jail. So it's very, very strict, and everyone adheres to that, and it is by law. And as a developer, if you think as a layman, as a developer, say we are doing a apartment project of 100 apartments, and then as a developer, I need to know that I need to have my own funds, either through equity or through a bank loan, or both, to carry on with my development. So as a developer, nobody is going to start up a development without the funds required to carry on with the development. So the risk from a purchaser's point of view is zero, because you cannot simply go wrong, because developer has to have his own fund to complete the project. And as a developer, nobody can use people's money to carry on with the development. As you rightly said, most of the subcontinent countries, they use people's money to do the project, which is a risky proposition, because if something bad happens, the project will not go ahead, as well as the money given by the purchasers will also be lost, because it has been absorbed into the project already.
That's right. So in other words, your money is safe. Australia is safe in terms of an investment destination and everything else you could say. So Navin, in terms of the current situation, when it comes to the economy and also the property market, do we see the prices falling anytime in the future? Because this would be a concern for anyone who is looking at maybe investing, given the pandemic, given this current situation. Is it the right time to invest? Will prices fall?
No, I don't think the prices will fall, as the media suggests. As you can imagine, media has to produce negative commentary for them to get the attention. So that's very important for everyone to know, that media's job is to create negative content, negative news, so that they get all eyes on them. But in terms of the property market, I think it will be stagnant for a while. It will hold its ground, especially in the suburbs. It's probably will start to move up, because there's so much of demand from first home buyers, as I said, because of the grants. Everyone want to snap up these grants. And I think the suburban market will definitely go up in the next 6 months. But for the next 6 months, at least, I think market will be stagnant and it will not go down.
That's great news. That's great news, Naveen. Do we have any further questions? Are we getting any questions from our audience?
Yeah, there's one more in terms of construction. What are the stages of construction? So over here, there's 5 stages of construction. One is called the base stage, where you do the foundation, where you lay a solid foundation of a property. And then number 2 is where you get the frame done, which is called the frame stage. Number 3 it's called the lockup stage, where the roof is done, the bricks are laid, so its house is externally, it's pretty much complete. Stage number 4 is called fixed stage, where all the fittings are done, and then that's a final stage where the landscaping and all the everything internal will be completed. So it's a 5-stage project. It takes about 6 months for a house to be completed, and once it gets started, it's a very, very straightforward process. And the builder will take care of everything in terms of project managing their staff, project managing their subcontractors, and getting it to completion. Yeah, good bunch of question for our first session, Shine. So I mean, as we go along,
right, yeah.
Shine is a head of sales in Sri Lanka, and as we go along, we'll be getting along all our team members all across the globe, so that it's interactive. It'll provide some value to the viewers as well as our clients, and it'll answer most of your questions. So we'll be doing this on a weekly basis. I'll be coming to you live 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. India and Sri Lanka, it's about 3 o'clock, is that right? 3 p.m. Or 3:30?
3:30 p.m.
Yeah.
Sri Lanka, India, 2:30 p.m. Middle Eastern Time.
That's right.
Yeah, so we'll be with you. We'll be answering all your questions. Please drop in your questions prior to the event. We will take it up during the live sessions. And when we are live, you can still ask us the questions. Throw us all your questions and we will answer them for you.
All right. Until we see you again next week. Goodbye.
All right.